everything in leadership is your fault. Whether it's good,
Yeah.
whether it's bad, it's your fault. I want to be a true leader. I know you have to have a mindset of servitude, being a servant. A lot of people, God bless the educated. If you're going to a Christian college, get educated, God bless you. You have a passion, you have a pull to be better. It's amazing. But there's this expectation too, I believe. Men already deal with it heavily. And there's an expectation to be the best of the best. Like, I want to be the best I can be, not only for my family, not only for myself, but for my man of God. I want to be there. I want to, anything that needs to happen, I'll be there helping, and I want to help. But you can kind of bounce off this. I believe that mindset of servitude comes from our spiritual leader, and seeing him have that mindset as well.
One of I don't know if you'd call it a meme or whatever, a picture, you've probably seen it, and it's I've seen it more like on LinkedIn when it talk about a boss situation, and it has, it's like it almost looks like an old Egyptian hieroglyphic or whatever. Maybe that's not the right word. I'm highly educated in those in things of archaeology.
Yes.
But there is an example. There's a bigger man, and it says this is a boss, and he's pointing and demanding that people pull this load, and he's on top of the load, or something. In essence, he's pull this load. And it gives another example, and I forget what it is, and it's essentially him whipping them or something like that. And then it says leader, and he's at the front pulling the load.
Yes.
And so that is a true leader. Isn't just saying, "Hey, go do this," and it isn't just delegating, but it's like, "Hey, let us get this done under his not just his direction, but seeing someone that's not scared to get their hands dirty." And as you were talking, one of the things in leadership, specifically ministry, I look back at Elisha. When he was called, he wasn't sitting around idly doing nothing. He was what? He was plowing. He was working. And when David was, but when he was before he was anointed to be king, he was what? He was working. He was being busy about taking care of the Father's business. Elisha was taking care of his Father's business. And I feel like if to the first stages of anyone's ministry is not it's maybe, I know I can't speak in every situation, but I feel like in most situations that the individual is going to be doing something in the kingdom. You're going to be working in the kingdom at any level. It might be ushering. That's a servant. That's a leadership. That's
Absolutely.
a servitude.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I recognize, going back to earlier, is I actually, man, I'll get off topic. I don't want us to go down there. That's a whole other thing. Is like, I love to usher. I was just telling my kids this. I ushered for a long time, and I really enjoyed it. And you think, you like ushering? I enjoy serving. I really do. And I when I began to being used in the ministry, it was actually a little bit of a challenge for me to not be able to usher. I was like, well, I want to usher, and I could at a certain point, but there came a certain point was like, no, you're not going to be you.
See, and that makes me excited to hear, because I'm always under the impression I'm kind of extra. Y'all know I'm a little extra.
Yes.
So whatever it is that I'm doing, I try to just pour myself into it. Now, whether it's singing, playing the piano, being a music director, but I've seen people be like I'll just shout out Brother Castro. And yourself, you're talking about you enjoyed ushering. You poured yourself into it, and then when you couldn't do it, it was like, there's a little bit of that because you cared enough to lead and to just serve and to serve.
I've seen people do the interpretation and get into it, and it gives more to the person being served when you are into it and you care, because someone knows that, oh, this person actually cares about that, because you did something to either prepare for it or just pour it into it, and it just means more to everyone. So just wanted to point that out.
But as far as people being, how do I get a calling? Well, I can't answer that. But I believe that you'll be working. You should be being busy in the kingdom.
That's good.
The very first thing, being a youth leader, you have to try to lead and guide these youth, and it's challenging enough with hormonal imbalance. But I encourage them. First thing said, get with your man of God on getting on the schedule. When they get a little older, they have some more freedom. Getting on the schedule for the cleaning schedule, and getting down to the church and scrubbing toilets and mopping floors and being busy in the kingdom of God. We have to have people. We have to. If it wasn't for all the volunteers to clean, we'd have a pretty dirty church real fast.
People don't think about it, but everything that we do for the kingdom of God is a ministry. You may not be a minister, you may not be preaching, but and I've shared this with Brother Brian. In this day and age, specifically in the music arena, I believe that the term doesn't get used. I don't want to, some people might get a big head, but in my opinion, you're in music ministry. That's a ministry. Mm-hmm. The cleaning is a ministry. Bible studies is a ministry. Sunday school teaching is a ministry. Ushering is a ministry. And a lot of people don't take that. They're like, well, I want to be in the ministry. I want to be behind the pulpit. And that's a very, very small percentage of actual ministry. What people don't see is, I think I've only shared this one other time, is there's been times, or a time specifically, that there was a family or a single mom that we were working with. My wife would go pick her and her kids up for church, and then it not the greatest situation without going into a lot of detail. And then one day we got a phone call. Hey, my best friend, her husband he just hung himself. And so we were there within a few hours in a house we didn't know, not the greatest condition, where we're just a few hours. This lady's husband had taken his own life through hanging in the garage, and we didn't have words to say, but we were just sitting there being a comfort and trying to be a support the best that we could. And it wasn't behind a pulpit. It wasn't getting recognized. And no one ever knew about that until I had mentioned it once within the last year. I thought that was several years ago. And it's one of those things where that's not glamorous. That's you don't know what to do, because I did not know what to do.
We don't read a book on that one, do we?
No, it's something that, but I want to go preach a conference somewhere.
Mark 10:45, for even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. Jesus washing the feet of his disciples and of Judas at that time, just ultimately washing the feet of Judas as well. The ultimate example of who to be and how to be. Now, a pastor is someone that we think as a shepherd. And there's a CNN business article, definitely not sponsored by them, that shepherds have long hours and their work can change depending on the season and weather. Now, it's dangerous to give a mic to a preacher. I know that, but it's also some of these topics where I'm going to read it again, but think of it as a man of God. Shepherds have long hours, and their work can change depending on the season and the weather. And there was another article on Spinoff magazine that said the most important lesson I learned being a shepherd is always being flexible?
Flexible is key, because as soon as you think you have as soon as you think you have a plan, as soon as you think you have an outline to go by, something happens, and or something comes up. You may get a phone call. Being pastor's assistant, one of his assistants now is, I've had some, get a phone call on your way to church, possibly. Hey, there's a situation that's came up. I may be there, I may not be, and it's not like, well, I'm just going to go out and grab a bite to eat. A lot of times there's situations with the constituency of the church where someone may be in the hospital. Hey, I've got to go to the hospital. Someone in the hospital, run with it, but the church has to go on. Many different situations.
And just like that, the weather changed.
Just like that, the weather changed. He was on his way to church, whatever, someone possibly sick, emergency, whatever it is. It could be a number of things.
Yeah.
And so then the dynamic changes. Well, I was just going to come and just open service. That's all I was planning for. That's all I was prepared for. That's all I'm going to do. No. You just stepped into that.
So being an assistant to the pastor, you've got to be truly ready in season, out of season.
Yes, I have. I have several, or when I first became the assistant, pastor had asked me one night, you ready to preach? And it caught me. I was not prepared. Can you preach like that service? I'm like, I can't. And I remember the look, and I immediately was like, it'll never happen again. Yeah. And it's not. You should always be prepared with something, and honestly, you should always be prepared as a minister in that arena. It shouldn't be like, well, I need 3 days or I need 2 weeks to go study and try to find something. Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm reading and praying every day, I should be able to. It may not be the most pretty thing, and the whole church may not be on its face, and 50 people may not get the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
But as a leader, you should be able to always give an answer, to always be able to get up and give something.
That's good.
And one thing I've noticed too with pastor is, I would say 95% of the time, if he feels sick, he's still coming to church. If he doesn't feel good, he'll be at church. And there has been times, I'm up and coming into the ministry. I feel call. So we're searching that out. But there was a time recently I was comfortable on the drums, like just have that mindset, like I'm just playing the drums today, baby. And he's starting to look around, and I always pay attention to my man of God. And he kind of looks at you, looks at another brother, looks at me. I'm like, oh Lord, I feel like he's. I was like, and we have a talkback mic system. No one else can hear us but the musicians. And Brian was on the piano, and I said, he's looking for somebody to preach. I guarantee you. He just gave me a look. Pray for me. Like, and sure enough, he called on you, and he called on another brother to fill that place, to split a message up. And I went up to him. He's like, I just wasn't feeling good. And I said, you gave me a look. He's like, yeah, I was close, but so I was right. It was just so crazy how that happens. But you got to be ready in season, out of season. If you feel like you are up and coming in the ministry or anything like that, be ready to at a drop of a dime help your pastor.
I think that's like the unglamorous piece of what you all have to do in ministry, right? Is that you're not ready for it, and here you go.
There's the pulpit is not the pinnacle of ministry. I mean, there's some that think that without going down that road. You can talk, but there are some that they desire the pulpit because in their opinion that's what you see, but you don't see the hours that specifically the pastor, how many years of ministry under his belt, and then the hours that week of trying to find the mind of God, not just what can I get the church jumping tonight? Yeah. What can I pump the church up with tonight? Yeah. It's not, or those lines. It's the no one's. That's just a glimpse of a 45-minute to an hour for of that you see. It's like, oh man, that's glamorous. Like, but that's not. You don't see him sitting in the jail cell across from someone, going and bailing someone out, going and praying for someone sick.
Yeah.
At all hours of the night.
Yeah.
That's servitude right there. The preaching of the word is just that. That's a small percentage, and like, let me preach, but I don't want to go pray for anybody that's sick. I don't want to go sit in a hospital room or go visit somebody in jail.
Yeah, I don't want to wake up at 3 a.m. to go save a marriage.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of the interesting fun facts about shepherds that Danny found, they were considered to be unreliable witnesses in matters of law and were unworthy to give testimony in Jewish court. And this was back in ancient times. David was a shepherd that was anointed king over Israel. So those that were the lowly of the low was exalted to be the highest of the high.
It's recorded in, I forget what book it is, maybe, I think it's in Exodus. It's really interesting. I had never noticed it till this year. And it said in Egypt, every shepherd was an abomination to the Egyptians. Mm-hmm. And so here is a shepherd coming in to lead the people out of bondage. Well, you're just an abomination. You're nobody. And it's also a reflection of how the world today looks at pastors and ministry.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They may not think of it as an abomination, but I mean, you almost, not, especially in the day and we live in, like, oh, you're a preacher?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, what kind of, a lot of the spirit behind of everything is either like money hungry, or, how are you gypping the people today? Or, what are you doing to, they always think it's some con game where it's just used car salesman.
In an unrelated note, there'll be a link at the bottom of the page where you can send your donations to today.
Yeah, our GoFundMe will be down, or our Venmo will be posted below.
Yeah, help this ministry grow. We're going to start a GoFundMe because it's the will of God that you give to our ministry.
And with that, it's a wrap. No,
Shepherds are also the first to receive the message about Jesus being born.
Yeah,
like that paradox in the Bible of it's such a Jesus thing to do, where Jesus was born, how he was raised up. Like he's God. He could have picked any kind of life he wanted, and it just proves that the lowliest of lows, the highways and the byways.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. And I didn't even think about Moses being a shepherd, because he was in the king's court in Egypt, and then he left that after, they got into some trouble, we'll just say, without going into detail, escaped and became a shepherd. When he got out into the wilderness, came back and led the people out of Egypt, and went into the Pharaoh's court and basically gave him demands as a shepherd to a Pharaoh, the God King, as they used to think that they were. That's pretty cool. I didn't even think about that.
An abomination. Who are you?
Yeah.
Demanding that you let my entire workforce go.
Yeah. Yeah. The backbone of our economy.
Right.
Something that I wanted to kind of to bring up that I would love to hear you share, because you sit so close to Pastor. You've probably seen more things than Danny and I. Even though we're in leadership, you've probably seen a few more things. Is what is it that, do you have without dropping names per se, right? But some kind of a story or a just maybe things that you've noticed that really stand out to you about our pastor, our shepherd, in watching him as being a servant leader. Things that I just to kind of start it off, things I've noticed about him that I've adopted in my piece of leadership is he's extremely long-suffering and very forgiving. A lot of times to his detriment, I feel that he gives people 2, 3, 4, 5 chances and can be burned over and over, and will do that again with someone else because he just doesn't hold against someone new what someone old has done to him. So being patient being long suffering is things that I try to do with others in the music department, because trying to have grace with people, knowing that we're not all perfect, kind of tying that back to the last piece of our conversation. I've stopped, instead of being hot headed, and as he tells me a lot, let this play out. Let's see if there's a problem here with so and so, or with this individual, with the situation. It'll come to light. So be patient. Don't spiritually kill anyone or harm them spiritually. Let it come to light, and then address it if it really gets out of hand. And that's a piece of him that really has changed my life and my outlook with leadership.
What you said is exactly true. One of the things of having a wise shepherd, and what I've noticed is his words. He goes, I've learned a lot, and I look at him, and there are times when I'm like, why are you being so merciful to this individual? Yeah, but yet when the mercy is my way, like, whoa, thank you. But not necessarily in those extent. But what I do notice about, you asked, what do I notice about our man of God, is that those exact things. Is a man that wins souls is wise. Well, winning souls is also keeping souls, and not so quick to like run people off. Yeah. It's easy to run people off.
Oh yeah.
And what I have learned is my man of God, our man of God, is very compassionate. He's very long suffering. And yet he is known by people who don't, or I shouldn't say known, he is thought of as people who don't know him, or people who may only see, come in for one service. Oh, he's a dictator. That's people's opinion. Right. Because he has said it, or people misinterpret what he says, or they see a one service, they come in for one service, but he himself, oh, he's a dictator. He's, that's been kind of, they don't know our man of God. Right. They don't know the long suffering. They don't know the compassion, and it's really interesting. Like this has been fresh on my mind, like extremely fresh on my mind, of seeing the compassion that has given, the lengths that have been gone to extend mercy, and then only to quite possibly see it not received. And I'm being very careful. But people don't see that about our man of God. He is the most compassionate man that I know. As far as now, he is but if you're in ministry, you should be held to a higher standard. Yeah. If you're in leadership, you should be held to a higher standard. Yeah. And that's to be expected. And if you are in leadership, if you're specifically in ministry, and you don't have some kind of thick skin, maybe you should not be. But our man of God, Pastor Mascroft, is merciful beyond my understanding at times, and that's what I've learned. Is like, you gotta, you could win someone in just a matter of minutes, convincing them, this is the right way, and then just because they don't line up to the in everyday Christian, because they don't line up to the standard, well, you're not working out, you need to leave. Yeah. When you could run someone off in minutes that might have been here, it took years to to get them established, and because they make one mistake, or they don't measure up, or they do something, we're humans. Like I said, God doesn't expect perfection, but we as humans, we expect perfection. Yeah. And when people slip up and fall, sometimes we're like, why are you giving that person another opportunity?
Mm-hmm. But that just because you say that, I tell my children, my nephews, and our young people, I tell them all the time the same type of deal, is that it will take you years to develop your reputation, and a moment to destroy it. So, and it's the same thing with individuals. It will take you months, years to develop and cultivate someone spiritually, and it could take you one wrong thing to say at the wrong time for them to walk out and never come back.
Right. And what I also appreciate and have recognized and noticed, it's not anything new that I've noticed, but our man of God is constant. He's not wishy-washy. He won't, he makes a stand when no one else is standing, and he stands by it. I'll make a stand until, it's not he's not basing his stands on what's popular among the people or the peers. It's like, I'm making a stand for righteousness. I'm making a stand for what is right and what is wrong. And that's what you need to be in a leader. You need to be willing to make a stand, but know what you're standing for and why you're standing, and not because your neighbor is standing. You got to stand on your own. There's a lot that I've learned about, it's just, like I said earlier, if you want to learn something about leadership, look at your pastor. And I wouldn't want another pastor. Have I always agreed? Have I always liked?
Right.
I'll say that very quietly. I don't always like things, but you know what? That's part of, and I would, if I was do you like everything I do? I wouldn't want to know, because I know the answer. It was no, I don't like, this about you. I'm not saying not personal stuff, but our job is not, his job is to lead the people, and our job is not to agree with it. One of the things that I was told, and I'd shared it with Pastor, and he liked it, is like, one of the things that I was told, and this goes into a whole other thing, leadership and submission is, true submission is not when you agree with the pastor and you're doing it. That's not submission. Submission is when there's something, when he gives instruction and you don't agree with it, but you do it anyway. I'm not talking about,
right?
Yeah, I'm not talking about right or wrong.
Right.
But when you're like, I don't see the necessity in that, so I'm not going to do it. No, submission is when you don't see the need, but you do it anyway. You're submitting your will to God's delegated authority. That's submission, is when you submit, when you're like, the violent refuse. Like, I don't see anything wrong with these babies over here and this gold. Well, submission is like, let's get rid of it all.
Yeah. Oof. That's got to be another talking point that we'll have to get to at some point, is submission, because it's a beautiful thing when you get there.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, pray for your leader, your man of God. Try to do your best to understand your leader, whether it is the outreach director, whether it is the pastor, whether it is the music director, whether it is especially youth leaders. They go through everything when it comes to not only young people, but sometimes you have to deal with us parents, not agreeing with everything that the youth leaders do. So pray for your leaders, because they are under subjection and they are doing their best. It's never to be harmful or hurtful. It's always for the best of everyone. And we appreciate everybody tuning in. I mean, this has been a really good discussion. Brother Bates, thank you so much for joining us today, drinking coffee with us and having these conversations.
And like he said, always listen to your man of God. But did you have anything else to say to finish up with?
I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm sure your ratings are going to skyrocket.
Oh, man, no idea.
To down. We get a lot of thumbs down today, but
we're a roller coaster type of podcast. It's okay.
or bipolar. No, I've enjoyed it today. Which I hope I haven't gone on too many tangents or anything like that. So it's been very fun. I've enjoyed it. I think I heard her say you lost another one. So
yeah.
Somebody just lost a subscriber.
Another subscriber, y'all.